Yo, how's it going?
About to throw up.
Okay, all right. Okay, so yeah, I mean, everything's grouping here for a while. You already sent. I probably would have waited for a couple reasons. One, you're just gonna get final rec on all the mobs, and two, if you start sending early while the tank is still grouping, you're just gonna rip the ret, and then you wouldn't have to bop. Usually I sit there, I complain, I sit there and say I'm waiting for sunders, I'm waiting for sunders, and then when everything's grouped, that's when I start sending. So you're basically just like we can count, right? We can count. You hit 4 mobs with the final rec, but you know there's about to be 12 mobs or 15.
Okay.
So if you just wait for you don't need the bop there, and then you can just wait, and then you can start sending. It's kind of a weird scenario. I would say the like lust pull, there's a lot more waiting usually for the gathering because there's usually a lot more mob at the start of a dungeon with the lust pull. So you're just going to get more value, and most likely this pull is going to die really fast where you're not going to send like another set of 1 minutes. So there's not really much use for you to rush into your cooldowns. You can just wait. You're not losing out that much. So you may as well just like kind of build up holy power, just kind of sit there, you know, and chill. And then when you start going into everything, do you have an action tracker up anywhere? Giant stem action tracker?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how to set that up.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We can tell what you're pressing.
That would probably help though.
So you built, you start sending. Okay, so first problem actually is you want to put Divine Hammer on cooldown first. And the reason for that is it's kind of just this buff that you want to keep up all the time. It's like Starfall. It's just doing all this fucking AoE, but it also doesn't do any immediate damage. So there's no real reason to throw it up inside of your cooldowns because then you're just losing globals that could be spent doing actual damage, like spending.
During wings.
Yeah, so you want to start with basically, you know, building like you did, then you can kind of sit there and wait, not press Divine Hammer yet because you're not really going to do anything. So, you know, build, sit there, and then Divine Hammer, and then Final Rec, and then Wake of Ashes into Hammer of Light. Yeah, and then you just start ripping. And then whenever you have the next, if you're not procking and stuff, then you spend Divine Toll. So Divine Toll is like pretty minor. It ends up like, I end up using it like pretty weirdly because if
like
I'm
towards
like
the end of wing?
Not towards the end of wings. You want to press it so that you're not desyncing it from the rest of your cooldowns, but it kind of tends to do that because if I start procking, then I'm just going to spend instead of press Divine Toll because Divine Toll is like pretty low value in my mind. You're just like constantly in this overabundance of holy power. But on like the start of a pull where you're probably not going to proc anyways because it's like the start of the dungeon, your tier set's not about to proc or anything, you're going to spend this Hammer of Light, right? You're going to go down to 0 holy power, and now you can press Divine Toll, given that you had already pressed Divine Hammer, right? Like this is assuming you had already pressed Divine Hammer, but all good. Basically, so like to go over what's really happening is like we can look at, like I'll just show you like a breakdown of a dungeon. So breakdown this, so Empyrean Hammer is like all of your AoE damage, right? And the way this kind of works is what makes crit so good is that every time you crit, you're like beaming out this extra Empyrean Hammer damage. So it kind of has a snowball effect. Like the more you crit, just the more cleaving you're doing. But also every time you're like spending or a Divine Hammer tick happens, you're shooting out more of these Empyrean Hammers, right? So basically you're going to amplify all of your damage from this, the more uptime you have of Divine Hammer. And that's really what's affecting like your, what I just straight up call it Starfall. So it's very important that like you treat Divine Hammer, even though it's low down here, it's really just a buff that is amplifying all the damage of this, and then you know everything else is feeding into that, right? Like the more you're spending, the more you're feeding into proccing more hammers. And what puts out, by the way, the Empyrean Hammers is Shake the Heavens, and it's part of the hero talent that when you press Hammer of Light, you put out Shake the Heavens, and then you can keep that extending for a while, but you're proccing so many Hammer of Lights from the 50 stacks thing that you pretty much have like 100% uptime on Shake the Heavens. And so as long as you are spending your Hammer of Lights like right away, right after pressing Wake, you know, you're at 5 holy power, then you can immediately press that Hammer of Light, which immediately puts up your Shake the Heavens, which immediately starts your Starfall damage. You already have Divine Hammer running, which is also already feeding into rocking this even more, and then you like start slamming your spenders, right? That's kind of the general rule of thumb. Like we'll just go into cast, we'll go into timelines here, and we'll go to, what's that?
I'm laughing because someone said, I hope you took an Adderall for this lesson.
Yeah, I just yap. Like if you need me to slow down, let me know.
No, it's fine.
Trying to get the money's worth, you know. This is how I operate in these. Okay, so this is the gather, you know, of a floodgate. Start of the floodgate. We run over. We're gathering. This is just showing a timeline of the buttons I'm pressing in the exact order, right? So I wait. Everything's gathered. So I press the usual standard stuff. You press this same order. You know, you've got your melee swings going on, which is generating holy power for you on every second swing. That's why I know that I'm gonna get to 5 holy power with just the 4 here, and then the 5th from the melee swings, and then you're going to press divine hammer. You're going to go into your cooldowns immediately after that, and I know that pressing my divine hammer puts me back down to 2, and then wake is going to put me back up to 5. I don't care if I'm overcapped on holy power with pressing my cooldowns. That's another feature of this spec, is you want to play around not throwing away holy power, except for when you just have cooldowns. Like you want to get into your cooldowns as quickly as possible. I don't care about the holy power I'm about to waste, you know, the fact that I'm probably going to waste this holy power right here off this like 4th melee swing. I don't care about that too much. And the reason for that is that it's way more important to know that the more you are going into your cooldowns like right away, the less likely you are to lose uses throughout the key. And the reason for that is all of your damage is wake, right? Everything you do revolves around pressing this and keeping up all these buffs as much as humanly possible. And you do that more by getting into wings as much as humanly possible. The more you like keep up crusade, the more haste you have all the time, the more damage you have, you know, damage up to 30% more damage all the time, 30% more haste. And when you're doing that, that's going to help you extend your divine hammer all the time. It's going to help you keep pressing spenders. The more you're pressing spenders with all this haste, right, the more you're going to proc, like right here, proc more crusade. And the more you're doing that, just the more damage you're going to do overall. And the easier it is for you to keep up divine hammer. So we'll look at like the 30 seconds later. So I press that at like 32. So the next one's going to be, did I press it here? No, wait. 32, so it should be like 60. Yeah, so I end up pressing like the next wake, like right at the minute mark. But this is also when the pull died, right? So I don't actually care because this is keeping it. The pull dies. I didn't even get my hammer of light off, but I don't care because look how long it takes to get to the next pack. The reason I don't care and I'd rather just press my cooldowns usually, especially at the 30-second mark when it's not with like my 1 minutes, is because I'd much rather just know that, okay, we're going to be gathering and grouping and wasting all this time. Like I may as well get more damage just pressing my button immediately, which keeps it synced up. This is another problem that people will have that we will watch your VOD and probably see some of, if I had to guess, is that
cooldowns.
Yeah, desyncing cooldowns. So it's kind of a major, I don't know, it trips people up because I think people look at Ret the wrong way these days because it's not so much like your wings, you're not a 2-minute class, right? Like you're not this like crazy burst class. Everything you're doing is kind of like an outlaw rogue. You're just kind of keeping up all these buffs. You're just like doing all this uptime. Like it's all about just like maintaining all this uptime. And then by the end of the key, you can see like, oh, I press wake way more of this key, so my crusade uptime was higher, my divine hammer uptime was higher. It's like all these buffs, and your damage isn't, you don't do burst damage, you just kind of do this constant damage. So I'm not too concerned with like at the 30-second mark. I just don't want to desync, so I'd much rather throw this out even at the end of the pull rather than, you know, desync and then be like 15 seconds away from like, oh, I have my 1 minute but my wake is up in 15 seconds. The most important thing is kind of just keeping it all synced, not treating it like it's some burst dam, and just keep putting it out, keep putting wake out, just keep pressing it. And we can kind of see that here. So you don't press divine hammer, you know, that's a goof, right? You know, it's fine, it's whatever. You get into it, you start pressing it, and then everything else you should be doing is kind of just spamming divine storm, like after divine toll. Like all you're really doing is weaving. You know, if you don't get procs, then you're, you know, pressing a builder priority obviously is just in AoE, just press Blade of Justice the most. If you don't have Blade of Justice for whatever reason, then you're pressing Judgment. And if you don't have either of those two, which is kind of unlikely in AoE, but if you don't, then you're pressing Hammer of Wrath. Hammer of Wrath is lowest prio in all scenarios because it's just shit. It's the worst damage. It's also just the worst builder because you only get 1 holy power from it. All you should really be concerned about is building holy power. And there are scenarios where you weave in Hammer of Wrath. Like if you're at 3 holy power and you're about to get a 4th from your melee swing, then you probably don't want to waste a judge or a blade on that like 1 more holy power. So you can just press a Hammer of Wrath there and then press your spender. But I would start with, you know, that's like a min-max that you can work on when you kind of get the confidence to work on that. What I would start with is, you know, just focus on building holy power when you need to, not pressing it when you don't need it, aka when you're capped or about to be capped. And then otherwise just spend and try and keep spending. And you'll notice this a lot, or maybe you already have, especially in cleave. You have like like an abundance of holy power all the time. And really what you should be doing is just prioritizing spending as much as humanly possible. So you'll be like that judgment. Let's see if that judgment is good. So you get into cooldowns, you start Divine Toll, you spend. Okay, so you press Blade of Justice there, but you got a proc, so you should have just kept spamming Divine Storm. It's one of those weird things where you kind of have to like quickly adjust to your procs and to what happens in these scenarios where, you know, you procced, but you didn't even notice you procced, and you pressed Divine Storm, but you were already expecting to like be low on holy power, so you would already queued in your brain to press Blade of Justice next. Realistically, you're better off just like kind of spamming Divine Storm, expecting to get a proc, and then when you don't, then when you're low on holy power, then press builder. And other than that, yeah, you keep spending. Okay, you judged again when you didn't need to. You like never ran out of holy power, so I don't think you needed to judge there. Again, you spend. Okay, now you're low, so that was good. And you're spending. Okay, so you just spent 2 more builders, but you're just are in abundance already. So you just did 2 builders, but all you should be doing is spamming Divine Storm. And the better you get at this, by the way, where you're just spending, and especially during like a lust pull, you'll notice that you'll immediately extend wings more, because the more you're spending and the more you're just like thinking about spending, and the more you're just spamming Divine Storm like a maniac, basically, you're just you're feeding into like to your procs, which is, you know, the talent Radiant Glory here. This kind of has like it's kind of interesting where this is why your talents or why your wings isn't that powerful anymore, and why you're just like, you know, playing around this like 30 second build. Each holy power, you know, just spent has a chance to proc Crusade, and this kind of has like an ICD. I don't remember the exact, it's like a hidden aura, so I don't even know if there's like an exact timer on it on the ICD, but the point being is that the more you spend, the more chance you have to just proc, and you'll notice that like closer you are to playing better, they're like playing, you know, perfect, these procs are like pretty standardized. You kind of just get them, you'll get them at the same times. The end of wings, like I'll notice like if I played poorly and I missed globals, then I won't extend wings at the end of like a lust opener wing set where I should have extended Crusade, and then I'll proc Crusade right after. I'll be like, oh damn, that means I played bad. So you'll kind of like start to, you'll just the faster you get at spending, the more you'll notice an extension of your Crusade uptime, which, you know, all just feeds into itself. It's just a snowballing effect.
Okay, sorry if this is a stupid question. You know the Blade of Justice what is it called? Expurgation, whatever the frick it's called. If you get like the tier set proc, do you just prio like spamming Blade of Justice and then refreshing?
Yeah, so you just always prio spamming. Refreshing it is not like, the idea should be that you are pressing Blade of Justice so much, you know, it's like your highest prio builder, that you're pressing it so much in between when you're not getting procs, that when you are starting to proc, like you just at least have it up and it's spread already, and then you're getting like full value from it. And given in the scenario that you are just procking but you didn't have the chance to put Blade of Justice back up, yeah, you just spend, because spending is just, you know, higher damage. It's just going to be at the loss of, you know, like the trade-off is like, okay, you have to kind of think about it like, okay, I'm going to get, I don't know, 6 globals of just spamming Divine Storm, but I don't have Blade of Justice up. Well, if you're fighting like, I don't know, this many mobs and you already don't have Blade of Justice spread, you're going to like spend all that time just spreading it anyways. So you're going to do amp damage to like 5 of them. For the second Divine Storm, you're going to do amp damage to 5 of them, and then it's going to spread to another 4, and then the next one's going to be 9, but you're losing a global where you could just spend either way. The idea should be that you're pressing Blade of Justice so much
that I don't have to worry about
that you shouldn't have to worry about that. And if the scenario comes up that you do, then just spend. Okay, yeah. So here's another thing, and talk about this. So you're gonna have Wake come up here, and Wake is a 30-second cooldown. So like 1, 2, 3. You almost sat on Wake being off cooldown for 10% of its cooldown, which, you know, you do that 10 times in a key, which will happen just out of human error, and you lose the use of Wake. That is the way you should be thinking about it. So basically, the idea, this happens a lot too. you just have a lot of holy power, you have all these procs, you want to keep spending, blah blah blah, but you need to be proactive and look at the fact that Wake is about to come off cooldown. I'm at 2 holy power, so that means I'm gonna go right to 5, and I'm gonna be able to, you know, with Wake I'm gonna go right to 5, and I'm gonna be able to press Hammer of Light right after, and that's it. It doesn't matter where your holy power is at, as long as you just want to be at 2 or more right before, you know, like a couple globals before your Wake comes off cooldown, and then as soon as Wake comes off cooldown, just press it, and that's gonna put you right back into wings. Like, you see how you just spent and you're not in wings? Like, that Divine Storm just that Divine Storm just sucks. Like, there's no point in it. And then you press like another thing, which is unnecessary. Yeah, now you're just in wings. You've immediately put Shake the Heavens back up, which, well, you probably didn't drop it anyways, but yeah, you didn't drop it because of Hammer of Light rocks, but yeah. But point being, you just want to get back into Crusade like immediately.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, and then the more you are delaying, like the more you are creating like you know, you're desyncing a little bit from your, see, like your final Rex at 26 seconds, 25, and now it's already kind of like desynced to like 3 seconds from that, which could matter. It probably won't, because you're gonna be killing this pack and then running the next one, so everything's gonna sync back up, so it's fine. But there's no reason not to just immediately go into wings and then have all those procs available already, like, and not give a shit about the holy power that you're wasting, just as long as you get into wings. That's just rule number 1. And then you've got procs, and then you didn't. Yeah, and it's the same thing, you know, you just kind of want to immediately be spending, especially in the 30-second wake. You're not really doing anything. You don't like have any other like cooldown buttons to press. So like when you press that wake and then immediately press that Hammer of Light, all you're really doing is just, if you get a proc, you're pressing Divine Storm immediately, or you're kind of min-maxing your holy power and, you know, pressing a builder and then immediately pressing Divine Storm. The goal is just kind of to... Do you have anything that tracks the tier set proc?
It's that tiny bar that was under Howie's name.
Oh,
I don't know if there's a better one.
Oh, yeah, okay. Probably want something better that's more legible for your own eyes. Like, you could even just move that, honestly. You could just move that, like, above the blue bar here. You could just move it there, make it wider.
Usually I just hear the audio cue, but sometimes I don't even hear it because I have my music blasting.
Yeah. Can't trust audio cues either. I'm the same way. Mine is... Okay, I'm playing Holy here. That's banned. Oh, mine just procced. Okay, it's about to proc here, and there it is. It's just this. That's it. I just know that, okay, my holy power started filling, this is happening, and I'm gonna start spending. But actually, this is those weird scenario where my cooldowns come up, so I actually don't follow that, and I don't even use it because I want to go into my cooldowns right away anyways. Which is the only scenario where you ignore your tier set proc, is like if your cooldowns are coming up, you're just pressing your cooldowns instead. They're way more important, and then you just go, and then you just complain after about RNG sucking.
Okay.
But it's way more important to go into your cooldowns than to delay them just for this like shitty tier set proc that is just you pressing spenders, you know, outside of wings. Ideally, you probably just want to, like, the bar is fine. You probably just want to move it to the center of your screen so that way you can like react to it right away with your eyes, and then just immediately start spending and not have to worry about anything else.
Okay.
And okay, everything's coming back up off cooldown.
Yeah, it wasn't, I didn't really fix the whole final hammer thing until recently, so this is like, what, 2 weeks old?
Oh, okay, a little bit outdated. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Lose is improve.
We don't have to harp on it anymore anyways. There's other stuff we can go over it. Oh, that's fine. I mean, you know, given that you know now. Okay. So you wait. Okay, so you've built a little bit. This is a weird pull because the scaffolding is going to die really fast. And also everything's grouping. This pull, very bizarre because it's hard to get these mobs. Like, you kind of want to wait for aggro. And you kind of want to wait for these mobs to group, but you also want to kill the scaffolding right away. So it's not really the worst play what you're doing here, you know, waiting to press your cooldowns, all that shit. But you can just, you should like still just prioritize the scaffolding until it's dead. And you can kind of just be wailing on this thing until everything's grouped and then go into your cooldowns, which you kind of do. But you shouldn't, you probably should just keep hitting this until all that happens. And also, you're probably normally scared of aggro. The mobs like literally just got grouped in first global. You're, you know, going into cooldown. So you're probably better off just continuing to wail on the scaffolding, waiting a little bit, and then starting to send. But you know, you're fighting your nameplates to target the architect. So that's, I mean, that's the right play. That's the right play. We all do that. Everything else here is good. Okay, blade. All right, now you're scared of loader bot stuff. Scaffolding.
I'm holding again. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is like the usual thing you're gonna see is, I think like that's gonna be like your most immediate improvement is just like not really treating your cooldowns like some crazy bursts and just immediately going into them, not worrying about like what holy power you're at, just kind of immediately pressing stuff again. Yeah, I mean, we can move on from this. Something you can do is, so when you're at this point, this isn't going to be like the best overall, but this is like the best scenario for a key. This is kind of a point where you don't care about those contractors dying, so you probably just shouldn't Divine Storm. This architect, you just really want to beat playing Fortnite again, because the scaffolding, you know, gives it DR, and you don't really want it to go up again and then have to kill the fucking scaffolding again. In this scenario, maybe even a little bit sooner than this, I probably wouldn't care about like Divine Storming these things. I mean, it's good for overall, sure, but you want this architect dead so you can go to the next pull. So I'd probably would be, you know, single targeting this thing as much as possible to try and beat it. You actually end up going into cooldowns again here, and I probably wouldn't have done that. Like, it was really close. If you weren't Divine Storming, you actually probably would have killed it just like without your cooldowns and been done with this pull. I mean, you know, this doesn't really end up making that much of a difference. You have to get out of combat. Someone has to click on the box, right? And the tank fucked off to go start gathering or whatever, right? So all that's fine. But yeah, you probably didn't need to send your cooldowns there right at the end. And if you had not been Divine Storming, then it probably would have died, and you probably wouldn't have had to press your cooldowns. Blah, 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 blah. And then you would have them right at the start of the next pull, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going into the start of the next pull, and you're kind of sitting there. Oh, okay. Actually, you end up just going straight to boss. So this is fine too. So you go straight into boss. This is where shit's already desynced, and now it's going to start desyncing even more. Okay, so in this weird scenario, I probably, like, as soon as the tank pulls, like, as soon as I see the tank pull, I'm going to be scared of threat, but I'm probably going to risk it and press Wake of Ashes, like, first global. And you can make that happen. You're at 1 holy power, and your next melee swing is going to give you another holy power. You got 2 seconds on Wake. It's taking a little long to group, so, like, it's going to be desynced, but it's better to send it as soon as possible. The greedy play, but also if the tank, you know, pulls the boss, I'm immediately pressing Wake. I'm not like pressing spenders. I'm just like, I'm trying to get Wake on cooldown and not desync it. And that should be my goal. Now you do have another weird scenario where you've already desynced your Divine Hammer because you didn't press it at you pressed it your 1 minutes, but you didn't press Divine Hammer for this part right here, which this happens. But this only happens in the scenario where if you are tracking your Divine Hammer uptime, which I don't actually, are you? Because this may be something I have to send you. Looking. Okay, I see Divine Hammer's up, but I don't see anywhere where you're tracking it. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, this is like an insanely important thing. Probably just want to get a weak aura. I can send you just, you know, basic one that just, you know, shows you the buff of Divine Hammer. Because that's pretty much, yeah, I don't see it anywhere. Basically, you're playing around this buff. It's just the icon, right? And, you know, every vendor is just going to keep it up, and you want it up all the time. In every scenario, it just like is all of it. It's just a large amount of damage for you, and it's just a passive. And the better you get at just, you know, pressing your buttons fast, it'll kind of play itself. Especially in AoE, it's just going to always be up. So like you have 4 seconds left on it right now. You're in your cooldowns. You're pressing stuff. as long as you're pressing spenders, you're not gonna have a problem. Like you're still sitting at 3 seconds. It's fine. It's fine. You got another spender. You're still sitting at 2. And then you press wake immediately, right? You've got 3 seconds.
Yeah.
If you press wake immediately, it's not going to drop, but you might actually lose it here. And it drops. It drops because you delayed the wake. Going into wake right away, you're going to immediately press a hammer of light, right? Which is counts as 3 or 5 holy power, which is 2.5 seconds. So you immediately get 2.5 seconds on your hammer of light that you wouldn't have dropped if you had immediately pressed wake of ashes. And then you would have, you know, again, been in crusade, which is giving you more haste, which means you're going to be able to build and spend even faster. You're going to get some more procs, and you're going to not have any, you know, you're not going to have a care in the world about divine hammer during cleave because you just have so many procs. But tracking it will kind of maybe help you to do that, to where you're like worried about the buff uptime of it, and then know that you should be spending to try and keep it up, and then you'll kind of get a better idea of, I would say, the better your uptime of divine hammer, it kind of can give you a gauge for, you know, if you're, you know, playing well. We can skip, so pressing wake right away, but instead you kind of delay it a little bit, and now you're like 15 seconds delayed, which is this awkward scenario where actually what I probably end up doing is I'm curious to see what you do here when your shit's delayed. I opt to delay if this ever happens, which is rare, but it does. If shit goes like south in a key and shit gets weird, then sometimes shit gets delayed. And when that happens, what I'll do is I'll send wake no matter what, but then I'll hold 1 minute to line them back up with wake. So I'll keep wake on cooldown, and then I'll save the 1 minute. Or I'll send the 1 minute like a little early, like if I know wake's coming up, but I just like procced wings. If I proc crusade, then I'll like, I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm going to send a little bit early. Then I'm going to press wake as soon as I can and maybe extend this crusade that I just got. And it kind of gets the same effect, but it's just, you know, weaker. But yeah, I'd rather hold my 1 minute than send them without wake, or without wings at least. Pass my guild trial. Let's fucking go, McDumps. Happy for you. Okay, so again, you don't have hammer of light going. It's coming back up. Okay, so this is another tricky scenario where your hammer of light is dropping right now. And again, if it wouldn't have dropped if you had pressed this wake. So if you had pressed that wake, then hammer of light wouldn't have dropped at all. It's the same scenario where if you're tracking it, it might help you realize that, oh, I need to get in a wake right away to keep this hammer up. Because now you're basically just, you don't have that extra, just all that extra proc damage, all that shit going on for 20 seconds until it's back up, you know? And like the uptime you should be like looking for is like 80% plus on divine hammer. If anything goes wrong here, we can like talk about that. But you haven't really had, like, you're definitely playing it super safe. Like, you don't really seem to have too many problems so far, like pressing your defenses and stuff. Like, you bopped on the first pull like insta for threat, and like you use both your 1 minutes there, which, you know, this phase should be about 1 minute, which means that, you know, you should get both your 1 minutes back to press again in the next phase. This was a scenario where you sent wake, and now everything's desynced, even though your stuff would have been up like right away. That would have been probably where I would have like broken my own rule.
Held?
And held, yeah. Just because it's so close. Like, I probably just would have held it at that point. I mean, you do have to think about it, like, for this scenario to happen, you had already had to have like kind of fucked up somewhere. So to fix this, you kind of just have to bite the bullet and wait. Otherwise, it's just going to keep getting worse. And you're not really fitting that damage into the like damage amp window. So I would have just held and been like, all right, well, I'm just going to sack a little bit of damage amp here, and I'm going to be the like mecha drone destroyer. And when these things get grouped up, I'm pressing final rec, and then I'm pressing wake, which you do, but you do without, you keep everything desynced, and you're just not getting, there's just not a lot of value that you're getting from this because you're just outside of wings the whole time. So there's not really any reason. The way Final Rec works, right? It's all of your spenders. All of your spenders are amped. So your single target are amped by 30%, and then your AoE ones are amped by 15. Basically, what makes it so bad to just press this without wings at all, aka just like without wake at all, is just the fact when you press wake, you know, you're immediately pressing Hammer of Light, which is a single target spender. You're immediately doing that damage, but then you're immediately getting to 6 stacks of Crusade. So it's 6 stacks of Crusade, you already have 18% more haste and more damage. So with all that more haste, you're just immediately going to be pressing even more spenders faster, and it's going to go all the way up to, you know, 30%. So with 30% more haste and 30% more damage, you're just going to get more spenders inside of this Final Rec, which is only 12 seconds long. So it's like you don't care about your burst, but this is like all you have as far as burst goes. Doing it the most efficient way possible is important. The idea being that if you do end up desynced, I would just hold these until you have wake again, because you're going to get the most value out of this button only if you're doing it inside of wings. And then another thing that's tricky, I tell people to play Empyrean Legacy, and I tell people that Searing Light is bad, and this button is going to help a lot with your Divine Hammer uptime as well, but you are going to have to track it. So hopefully we can check to see if you swap into this talent, if it's tracked, because it should be, you know, this is in your raid build, in the single target build you play this talent anyway, so it should be tracked, but it does kind of play itself in the single target scenario. So we'll just check to make sure, and if not, we'll get you a weak aura and kind of just show you how that works. Okay, so notice you do that a lot, and this is something to work on too, just as a player, kind of just a melee player in general. Which is, okay, you're not targeted by this, so you're getting away from it, which is the right play, but you're not pressing a singular button in the meantime. And you do have a lot of range as Ret, and that's something like everyone bitches about. It's like, oh, Ret can just attack from far away, but you're losing melee swings, which means you're losing holy power. It all feeds into itself, and you do want the holy power. Now, I'm not going to encourage you to play greedier, but I'm just going to say movement as a melee is very important, to where you could, you know, the safe play is to move away, but you could still be attacking right now. Like you could still be throwing out a Divine Storm while you're moving right away. You have horse charges available, so you can just horse to reduce the amount of time that you're spending outside of melee. Like you could be spending that whole time, but it's just something to work on, kind of more so than anything else. Like the more comfortable you get with like the rotation and just kind of pressing buttons, the more you're going to find it easier to just try and press globals while also moving.
Yeah, as like a newer-ish player, I feel like my positioning is really bad a lot of the time.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could probably see that more in raid. I feel like in keys it's kind of just, you know, it's every man for himself sometimes. But we can look. Like I'll pay attention to it, the upcoming polls and stuff. So you're helping off heal. I'd be probably again immediately going into stuff, which you do. This is kind of a weird scenario where, since you're helping off heal, the damage amp is ended here, the ads are about to come out, and you're not actually desyncing yourself since you've already been desynced. So you could just hold this wake. This is a nitpicky like one-off thing, but something to think about. You could have just held that wake and waited for these things to be grouped, and then kind of be AoE blasting them again. Just gonna help get you into the next phase faster. But again, that's minor. Okay, you just sent wake again, so everything kind of just stays desynced, which again, this will be a massive fix for you. I think not having the scenario come up where, you know, just set a rule for yourself basically, which is that if you get desynced, don't hold wake, but hold your 1 minutes for wake. So
okay.
if you end up getting desynced, and then the better and better you get at all this, the better your Divine Hammer uptime is going to get. And then you'll find scenarios where you'll get to that 1 minute mark where your Divine Hammer comes back up and you don't actually need to press Divine Hammer again. Okay, so you are tracking right in the middle here. All right, I didn't see it before for some reason. You do have it, which is fine. And yeah, there's not really, but you're about to drop it. because you haven't pressed and it's gone. So again, okay, so this is actually a weird scenario where you press Hammer of Light as soon as it comes off cooldown, but it's kind of really hard to maintain without all that Crusade haste uptime. So if you run into this scenario where you need to get Divine Hammer back up and you have it off cooldown, well, just wait and sync it back up with Wake at least, because you just absolutely need the haste from Wake to maintain it. Not so much in AoE, but even still, I've had scenarios where like I've tried doing what you just did and it kind of falls off. But the reason it fell off there before you got your Wake back was more so that you were dodging stuff and you got Cog-EL'd and you aren't really pressing anything here. You're just you press spenders and you just missed like a couple globals of pressing Divine Storm instead. So yeah, I mean, that's probably your biggest improvements aside from like the desyncing stuff, aside from all that, is just in these scenarios where you are dodging stuff, in the scenarios where you are kind of just looking for things to target, you should still just kind of get your fingers used to just kind of spamming like Divine Storm or spamming Blade of Justice. Like, it's kind of what I do. Unknowingly, I'll just be spamming, even if I have nothing to press, I'll just kind of be spamming either Blade of Justice or Divine Storm. Like, I'll be just spamming those binds even if I can't press them. And then if I was Cog-EL'd in that time frame that I was spamming it and it turns out I can't be pressing those, but I had other stuff to press, then that's when, you know, I'll try and account for that error and press something else, right? But the safest bet is to kind of just work on your muscle memory, and that'll just like kind of improve you overall as a player too in these scenarios where how many times have I said in these scenarios? But yeah. Okay, and then you go into this poll, everything's kind of about to be resynced, and okay, unfortunately you don't have Divine Hammer, so that's gonna suck. Let's check one more time like what you did at the end here. Okay, so you're fighting like 2 contractors after killing the boss. Definitely wouldn't have pressed Divine Hammer here. Definitely wouldn't have done that. Probably wouldn't have pressed much of anything. And yeah, you just like kind of send Divine Hammer. Again, you just have to treat it like this buff that it's this like passenger princess buff that you need to pamper, and you need to pamper it with all of your cooldowns to maintain it. And then when you get good enough at doing that and you're pressing your buttons really fast, then you can start crying to your tank about how they're not pulling fast enough to maintain it. But when you get to these like higher key levels, that's not really going to be an issue. It's going to be more so an issue of in these scenarios where, again, I'm going to just say that, where you press Divine Hammer, you just want to avoid pressing it like that in almost every case. You want to just treat it like it's a cooldown that should be paired with Wake of Ashes, bare min. And then it'll kind of maintain itself. And then if you have to let it fall, just kind of pay attention to like when that's going to come up in the next poll, and just kind of make sure that when you're putting it back up, you have Wake for it. And then that should like kind of, again, solve itself. And that was so kind of the same issue towards the end of this poll. It's going to be this snowball effect where you're just kind of pressing things and and you don't press it with anything, so you press it and you press it with Wake. Actually, this is good. However, the poll's almost dead. This is going kind of against the rules I was saying earlier, but because the poll's almost dead and that's like a buff that you're not going to get back for a minute and you're about to run to this next pack, you kind of have to think proactively about, you know, oh, I'm about to lose this. You could have tried to maintain it on those 2 mobs, those 2 soldiers, but you probably would have a threat. So in that case, I probably just wouldn't have pressed it at all at the end of that poll. I probably still would have sent that Wake, which is what you did, which is good, because now, as you can see, it took 30 seconds to group this shit up. And now you have all your cooldowns again, but you don't have Divine Hammer. So if you had held it, you would have had it and you would have been AoE blasting this pack with all your cooldowns, and then everything kind of would have been synced back up, right? And I'm guessing you're about to press it again. So again, it's like not quite the end of the pull, but it's getting to that point. You press, yeah, you press Divine Hammer, and now you're pressing Wake, and as you can see, you're about to go kill these mobs and then fly away and then not have Divine Hammer, and then you're sitting on it, which I'm guessing next pull is going to be a Scaffold Architect thing with a bunch of divers probably. So when you do this, you're just not going to have Divine Hammer out for it. Which, yeah. So yeah, as you see, like a lot you can fix here is more so to do with respecting kind of the value of Divine Hammer, not desync your cooldowns, pressing your things proactively, seeing when they're about to come off cooldown and just getting, you know, pressing them as soon as possible. If the pack's about to die and you're about to have all your 1 minutes back, then and you know that you're about to run for a little bit to the next pull, then probably don't send everything right at the end. It's these little things. And then, you know, creating more uptime for yourself, just, you know, getting the APM higher when you're dodging, pressing more globals. When you're looking to click on things, still spamming Divine Storm, even if you're not straight up looking at your bar and seeing what you have to press. You have the only...
Sorry, maybe if it's another stupid question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use Shield of Vengeance as like a damage button?
Oh,
or
not in keys, not in keys.
You use it, you save it for like...
Yeah, no, it's a defensive. Like you always treat that button as a, I mean, even in raid. The only scenario where you should treat it like a damage button is like if you're trying to parse in raid or something. Other than that, I mean, it's just straight up a defensive. And it's I mean, it's one of your two, so you should just treat it like that always.
Oh. Good comms.
Yep.
I fucking hate this poll.
Okay, so what is it that you hate about this poll? Because maybe we can like solve. Because I don't think this poll's that bad. It's a lot of weird movement, I guess.
Is it better to stand with the tank here?
Yeah.
Should I just be on the tank?
Yeah, I mean, in most cases where you're dropping stuff like this, grouping up as melee, it's kind of hard to do always. So if you're just like Cog-EL doing it, then don't bother. But yeah, I mean,
what does that mean?
Oh, cognitive overload. Sorry.
Oh, like what the fuck is cog?
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, if you just can't afford the brain globals, let's put it that way.
Okay.
You know, if you're just trying to solve other problems, then you know, don't worry about it, and you just drop and move, right? But if you stacking on the tank is gonna, you know, increase the amount of area you have to work with, right? Because now look, you like 4 of you have dropped this wall of saw blades, and so now you're gonna dodge these fucking frontals that are turning, and so you have to, you know, do this extra movement around the saw blades. Also, I don't really respect the saw blades that much. I kind of just run through them. You might take a tick of damage, but they're also like, you wear plate and it doesn't really matter that much. So you're better off dodging through the saw blades and not being scared of them. As long as you just don't stand in them, then you're fine. And the only thing you really need to be scared of is, again, these frontals, and then the surveyors throwing 2 dynamites at you. Other than that, again, it's one of those scenarios where right at the end, I'm going to say scenarios again, even though the poll almost ended, we almost made it through it. Yeah, so you're going to drop like a saw blade, and then where was it? You drop like a saw blade and you just kind of stand in it. You kind of just want to move, just be moving as it's going out. And that's kind of it. You can move with the tank as it's going out, that's fine. Oh, right here. Yeah, so, I mean, you're taking extra ticks, right? It ramps. As long as you're just moving through it, you're not going to take really that much damage. The only time you need to be worried about that overlap of, you know, kind of be scared of the saw blades is if you're getting targeted by multiple dynamites from the surveyors at once. Which, do you have a targeted weak aura? Like a weak aura that shows you what casts are targeting you?
I hear the little droplet.
Yeah. That's usually that's how I react to it as well.
And then that's when I usually press defensive. Or kick it.
Yeah.
I can.
Yep. Well, the dynamites aren't kickable, but yeah,
Can you hodge?
Yeah, you can hodge. Yeah. You can hodge them. Defensive will definitely be enough though, for sure. Okay, this boss is annoying as fuck. I hate it. Oh, that was good. You went right into Wake there. Unfortunately, that was good, given that you didn't have 1 minute coming up right away, right after. So, would have definitely held that Wake. The reason, okay, so this Wake would have sent right away, right here. We were talking about this other stuff.
Would have been back up.
Yeah, and then it would have been synced. Everything would have been fine. And as you, yeah. So, you know, that pull ends, and Wake would be coming up with your final rec in 5 seconds from now. So, you basically, again, that's just another, you know, just another scenario where you just kind of end up losing a use.
Yeah. And I know you're supposed to, like, prio damage on Bront. Do you just chase him down every time he charges? That should PMO.
I don't chase him down at the start. I kind of wait to see like how even Cleavens we are, just kind of depending on how much the range have been hitting him. So I'll start. Oh, also in almost every case of these 2 target bosses, I'm trying to Divine Storm as much as possible. So yeah, like targeting off of Bront, probably the right play. He's lower health right now, which means your 2 range are doing their jobs, actually. So I would have noticed by now that Bront is taking more damage, and I probably wouldn't have been scared at all to like chase him. And because of that, I would be Divine Storming, but targeting Quick Fuse probably. Yeah, I mean, this boss is, I don't have like any amazing tips and tricks for this boss. It really is just bad, and I drop Divine Hammer on it all the time.
Okay.
Because you're actually just better off.
I was like, oop.
Yeah, I mean, that I literally do the same shit. Like, you're just better off playing the mechanic and, you know, playing safe than you are, you know, trying to maintain your Divine Hammer and, you know, hitting the wrong mob. Your range are playing nice here, which means that you can kind of just play greedy, stay on Quick Fuse. You don't have to chase Bront around. You have to move out, obviously, for the charge a little bit whenever it's on you, or if you have to go get dispelled on something. But, you know, this is a great scenario right here where, you know, the charge is on you, but there's no bombs to get, so you can charge him back into melee. As soon as he's back in melee, I'm probably pressing Wake. So you do that, but again, it was a couple globals off, and all of that adds up just to really hammer that home. All that adds up. Also, Bronze is getting owned, and you can be Divine Storming here, so I'd be, in all cases, Divine Storming off of Quick Fuse, or just in any 2 target scenario. I'd be Divine Storming for sure, unless one mob is significantly, like in this case now, I'm probably pressing Final Verdict on Quick Fuse because, you know, Bronze getting owned. But yeah, you will do significantly more damage. You can do like 500k more DPS just pressing Divine Storm on the 2 mobs, like minimum for sure. And again, you press Divine Hammer right at the end of the fight, so it's going to, that's going to be costly.
So fucked.
Yeah, it's just going to be fucked the rest of the key, looks like. But this is great because you can see what happens kind of every fight. Kind of when you get to the higher key levels, everything kind of plays itself, right? The closer you are to playing perfectly and playing like pressing your buttons on cooldown and pressing them smart and then not pressing them right at the end of pulls or something, then kind of everything plays itself and it all stays synced because, you know, you had your 1 minute come up right there at the end, but if you had just not pressed it, then you would have it for the next pull, which is going to take 15 seconds to gather, right? So you're going to have it synced back up. So everything would have been back up if you had just held it there. So now kelp pull. Okay. So you opted to press wake. Okay, so you had all your buttons. We've already talked about this. It's not really like, we're not going to be nitpicky. You know what you did wrong there. And then we can see how you play defensively like on the next fight. Okay, so this is like the first true single target encounter of the dungeon.
This is pre-buff.
Oh yeah. All good. Nothing. I mean, nothing really changes with the buffs. You just do a little bit more damage on single target. Save all your buttons. Again, we won't talk about the order. Yeah, so in single target you'll notice a lot more where you'll just like have a lot less to press. And that's why I like Empyrean Legacy so much. It's just gonna help a lot with Divine Hammer uptime, which you will now be paying attention to a lot more, obviously.
So I should have opened there with Final Reckoning and then...
Yeah, well, so here in this case, I would open with Builders. So you open right with Wake. I would have put the Builders out first and treated it like, you know, like the start of a raid boss or something. So I would have put Blade up and then Judged and not cared about the fact that I'm like eating Holy Power, because I'm just going to put those on cooldown and then I'm going to go into my cooldowns. And then those will naturally come back up while I'm pressing my cooldowns. And yeah, and again, maybe also something just to like work on at the dummy is like go to a target dummy and build muscle memory every day, just kind of pressing the things in the right order, and that way it comes naturally. So then when there's like a lot more going on at the start of a pull, you don't have to worry about, you know, you can let your fingers do it and you don't have to worry about it as much, and you can, you know, worry about the other things going on, like pressing defenses, like you get targeted right on pull, or, you know, whatever, you got to kick or something, or you got to run away from a red nameplate because you were being greedy. So you press Shield of Vengeance here. Probably okay. You're actually the opposite of most players. You liberally press your defensives, so that's good. But I would start thinking about, so you're like very safe with your defensives, but there's not really any damage happening yet. There's gonna be some ticking damage, but it's all gonna get healed through right at the start here. And then the real damage, what you're really scared of, is the pulsing shit with the waves. So, you know, you're taking ticking damage, but it's fine. And then right here, you're just going to start taking, you know, chunks, right? Yeah. This is where you want a defensive. And, you know, all this is, you know, a lot more on the healer, but this is like a defense. This is more of a defensive and healing check boss, right? So in a lot of cases, you want to... What you're doing is good for like trash pulls, playing your defensives liberally, keeping yourself safe, and which kind of helps you to just not panic, right? But in a boss like this, you do have to kind of deconstruct that and start using them like at the right times, and which is like every, I don't know, 45 seconds, 50 seconds. I don't remember the exact time frame of it, but yeah, so you're going into waves here, and your DR is ending right now. And now is when you would want a defensive, but you do bubble and you sack someone, so that's fine. But you waste your Shield of Vengeance here. You're pressing everything just on cooldown, dude. It's the right idea. It's just you're wasting that shield. You know, what do you need it for? You got Divine Shield up. You don't need that. So you're not going to take any damage. Your shield's not going to... Okay, never mind. You got full value out of it. I take everything I said back. You got full value. All right. All good. All good. Yeah. So again, I guess we can talk about movement here then too. So with every wave set, you kind of want to press something. If you don't have anything, maybe you let your healer know that you don't have anything. Like maybe a dart goes down, maybe an AMZ goes down. Maybe the healer's just going to, you know, watch you a little bit closer, or is in cooldown, so you don't have to worry about anything. There's a lot of things you can do defensively that doesn't have to just mean you press everything all the time. But yeah, I mean, as far as like we'll watch what happened to cause this, right? You're like feeling safe and good, but okay, first of all, you're in bubble, so you actually don't even need to panic yet. but your bubble's about to end, so you had the right idea, but you're like sprinting away from the rest of your group. You're actually just safer just playing with the rest of your group.
Oopsie.
And just, you know, just sidestepping a little bit. If when in doubt, like if you can, if you're really not sure and you know you're new to the game and everything, you could probably trust someone that you're playing with and just kind of move with them. And then if they get you, you know, if they get you fucked up and you're like, oh man, I wanted to go the other way, then, you know, that's when you can start egoing them, I guess, right? But otherwise, then you were definitely safer not going left there. You're not you were definitely, everyone else was stacked right to the right and a couple steps to the right and you would have been good. And you didn't have to do the whole panic thing or do like a large move. Sometimes just doing a smaller move is a lot safer. Oh, this is good. Nothing more to see here. I mean, the single target prio doesn't change. Nothing really changes about how you play single target versus AoE. It's the same shit. It's press your buttons efficiently. Don't waste your holy power. If you have cooldowns, you can start wasting your holy power because you just want to get into cooldowns. You know, you're just pressing Final Verdict instead of Divine Storm. If you do get Divine Storm procs in single target, I do end up spending those. There are min maxes to it. You're better off pressing a builder, getting your builders on cooldown, given that it's not going to waste holy power. It's better pressing that first than it is to just immediately press the Divine Storm proc on single target. Because in single target, you're going to proc the resets on your Blade of Justice a lot less. So you're going to be a lot more starved for like having anything to press on single target. So it's going to be harder to maintain Divine Hammer. And again, Imperial Legacy will help with that. But because it's going to be harder to maintain, you do want to play as efficiently. It's going to be more important to play as efficiently with your holy power as possible with your builders. The idea, the like main pillar is that keep your builders on cooldown as much as humanly possible without overcapping your holy power. So you play around procs, you play around pressing them or maintaining or paying attention to your swing timer, right? That blue bar. So you know when you're about to get another holy power. So you don't end up, you go to 4 holy, you think you're at 3 holy power and then you're not paying attention. You go to 4 holy power at the same global that you press a builder that costs 2 or that gives you 2 holy power. Well, that just means you wasted 1, right? So you were actually, because of that melee swing, you're better off spending first and then pressing a builder. And that would have been more efficient use of your builders, right? And then because it kind of snowballs again into itself where it's not something you notice right away. And you don't get punished for it entirely. And you can get bailed out just by procking. But in the cases where you don't proc, you just are down 1 holy power. And like a couple spenders later, you're going to like feel that. Because you're going to have nothing to press if you don't luck out. You get a proc. So it's those weird things that are hard to notice. But you're just better safe than sorry is just kind of paying attention. If you haven't been paying attention to your melee swing, your blue bar that's about to give you a holy power, then you're better off like spending than trying to greed like a builder and then spending. Little scenarios like that. And again, in some of those scenarios, you can also just weave in a hammer of wrath because it only gives you 1 holy power. You can just do that instead. But your goal should just be to try and keep everything on cooldown, but not overcap. Do you have a focus kick macro?
No.
That is something I was really stubborn about. You want to get, better at M+. I was really stubborn about that for a long time, and I just didn't use it. And I was like, nah, it's more fun to just click on a frame or like mouse over kick a frame. But as soon as I got a second bind for a focus kick and also, a bind for setting a mouse over focus, I mean, the like it's insane how much more efficient and how much better it is just to do that, just to be focus kicking.
I mean, I used to do that on mage.
Yeah, it's the same concept. You don't ever have to, you don't have to fucking click the frame. You don't have to worry about.
You just payphone.
Yeah, you just payphone, and then if you have to turn and like, you can be spamming the focus kick, and if it's not kicking, then that means you're either out of range or you're just not facing the mob, and you can like quickly do that while not having to target it. So it's just as chill as doing it on mage, probably. To reiterate, just Divine Storm, 2 targets. Even if you're trying to focus one down, it's
better.
It's just, I mean, if your group is like legitimately scared, but in every scenario, it's just faster to Divine Storm 2 targets, and it's just better damage. So if you get to the end where you're like, your group's like, holy fuck, we're about to die, like finish the mob off, then, final verdict it, right? But otherwise, it's just more efficient to Divine Storm. Like, this mob's gonna die, no one's really scared. Everyone's like looking pretty healthy, and now you're stuck final verdicting this one still a little bit. It's just better damage and faster, unless there's some unique scenario where you're actually not scared for time, not strapped for time, then you may as well just play safe,
How big is the hitbox on this guy? Because I feel like I was.
It's very small. Yeah.
Very far away.
It gets larger during this phase. So if you were to stand inside of that, I learned this recently. If you move into that shit in the middle, like the electrical shit, he just blows you the fuck up. You just fucking die. So for whatever reason, his hitbox gets bigger during this phase, and then where you're standing is fine, and then it gets smaller after that phase, and it becomes annoying as fuck. This is another hard boss where, depending on how you're kind of at the mercy of your tank for how the orbs get kited. So it looks like your tank's playing it fine. Like, the idea being that you wait for them to spawn, you move over to like the largest grouping, and then your tank makes it easy for you to stay on the boss while kiting an orb. And then, obviously, this is all bad. There's no reason for you to do any of that right there.
Yeah, it's just so like, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, you're just not really, so basically your tank got owned and is just kiting an orb around for the entire time.
Because I think his didn't go through.
Yeah, someone took his over there. Like, someone took his orb like right there. And obviously the play probably would have been to go up in here and then have the orb get kited over here into this one. But, for whatever reason, none of this affects you anyways. You just, your goal is to stay on the boss, and you just didn't need to leave the boss, basically. It was a little tight over there, but, as long as you're not standing in the 2 circles, you can move over. You can also run through that electrical thing. You can like horse through it and not really take a tick of damage. So you could have like moved over to the other side, all that shit. Then this phase, generally, unless the healer says, oh my god, I'm out of mana, or oh my god, I have no healing, watch yourself. That phase, you probably don't need a defensive. It does get a little sketchy at some points where the healer actually doesn't have healing for it, and that's when you kind of have to defensive. But these Giga Zaps fucking hurt, usually. And the initial hit hurts, and then on top of that, the dot hurts, right? But if you're not going to get the Giga Zap, then there's no actual reason for you to like press, because you're not going to be taking any damage. So like, you press shield there, and there was just no need. So your tank's gonna kite this stuff over here, and then you can stick to the boss. Okay, you did all that fine. And then now you've been picked, and you've got a defensive for it. But yeah, so basically like that shield is, you know, wasted. Oh, you got a weird bug there, I think. Or maybe it's a dot. Does that happen when you have the dot?
I have no idea.
It must. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that. Yeah, I guess if you have the dot, it zaps the water. I didn't know that. But yeah, you actually you would have been safer there running through just the zap one? Yeah, the electric one, because you can horse through it without taking any damage. But yeah, I don't even think I knew the dot did that. Okay, you're bubble sacking during this. I actually would for sure, I mean, well, you're actually scared, so that sack almost killed you after the bubble ran out, but yeah, I would definitely probably try and use bubble for the Giga Zaps as well, because you can just immune the entire dot, you know, and the damage. I would have normally talked about the tech that where you could immune the dot and then immune also the other person's dot, but they fixed that this week, so it's nothing.
Oh, rip.
Yeah, so there's no cool tech there.
Now I have the Ret Paladin wisdom.
Yep. Just yap as quickly as humanly possible for 2 hours and hope it all sticks. At least there's a VOD.
I took notes.
Oh, took notes? All right, yeah.
I took notes.